Oh my God.
I don't know if I can do this.
Don't do it.
Therapy, dudes.
Don't
Therapy,
do it. Don't do
dudes.
it. No, no, we
I
just
don't have
lost
my computer,
everybody.
so the soundboard's not here. Welcome to Therapy,
That's okay.
dudes.
We probably, yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're doing part two now of our conversation on abusive relationships, on personality disorders, and how they can sabotage a relationship, and what are the signs to look for, and ideally, what are some like healthy ways to avoid this or get out of the situation if we find ourselves in that kind of dynamic. And
Right.
I'm with Andre Karkamaz. He's about to talk about Darvo, which I'm very excited about. It's a term that I didn't hear of before earlier today when we were discussing it. You want to dig into that?
Yeah. So, we were in the previous episode, we were talking about like unhealthy dynamics in relationships. We talked about what gaslighting looks like, what reactive abuse is, um, deflecting, all that stuff, and blame shifting. And so ultimately, there is a type of personality type that just will not take accountability, does not want to resolve any kind of issue. Probably, I mean, even doubles down when you bring up issues. So, and they use something called Darvo. And Darvo is a term that was coined relatively recently, I think, when researchers were studying this type of personality, where they just noticed that there's the same kind of pattern that these types of personalities use, and it's the D in Darvo stands for deny. So I come up to you with an issue, you deny it. The perpetrator denies the abuse or harmful actions
I
that
never do
occur.
that.
You've never done that. You
Never.
never. And then attack, the perpetrator attacks the victim's character, memory, or story to discredit them. Um, so they'll say things like, uh, "You're just you're just insecure. That's the only reason that like anyone else wouldn't feel this way about me, flirting with the opposite sex constantly or, ignoring you constantly, whatever it is, right? You're just too sensitive or you're too needy or whatever it is." And that's not what I remember. Like, I don't remember that. Sorry. You can even have evidence. You can have recordings. You can have witnesses, which is crazy because these people will still deny it. I mean, it's just part of it. Then they'll attack it. They'll attack you.
Okay, so there's denial and then like a counter. That's the
Yeah.
A. That's
It's
the A
it's
in the
it's
acronym.
it's a
Okay.
distorted story to discredit you. That comes up next, the A. And then the R and the O, the R and the V and the O, they just term it all together as reverse victor and offender. So the R
Victor?
is victim and offender. Oh God. I mean, right. Like, honestly, reverse victim and offender. The perpetrator portrays themselves as the actual victim and the victim as the aggressor, often by highlighting their own perceived past struggles or good deeds. So, like, basically, I'm just going to shift the whole thing around on you. We're not actually talking about what you brought up. Now we're talking about how you're a bad person because of something that they can latch on to and say, you're just not good because I don't know, you didn't move in with me. Here's an example. You like I'm I bring up to you, hey, you're very like you speak really poorly to me. Like, can you just be kind? Can you stop like talking to me with this much disrespect or like in front of the kids like that? Or, like, can we just be kind? All of a sudden it's flipped and oh, you're just so sensitive, and I don't remember being mean to you, and all this stuff, and you're just discrediting, like dismissing all my feelings, and even discrediting the story, like even though it just happened, like it was in full display, even there's witnesses and everything, and then you start talking about how the real problem is it's not about how I you treat me poorly. It's about how I don't live with you or pay enough bills or, do X, Y, and Z. And that's really what the problem is. That's what we should be talking about because I'm actually a good person. And in your mind, that's what you're saying is like, I'm actually hurt by how you just don't do all these things that I need, right?
Right. Right.
And so now I'm just sitting there saying, well, why would I move in with you when you're talking to me this way? Right? Like this is just an example, right? I'm giving a random example. Or when you treat me this way, or you're always so mean to me and blah blah blah. And no, the issue is that you don't move in with me. That's the only issue. It's not, the issue isn't that I threaten to call the police on you every time you say no to something, or I kick you out, or I drink too much, or anything like that, right? The issue is that you don't live with me, and that's all I'm going to focus on in this conversation, right?
Right. Right. Um, I really like that Darwin model of like deny, attack, and reverse the victim and offender because it's kind of this like it's almost like I know you are, but what am I from like when we were, in
It's
kindergarten or something,
right.
where it's like we don't even have an agenda until somebody says something that feels like it's a criticism and sort of, makes a dent in our ego driven like sense of our own sort of like perfectly formed perfection image of ourselves.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then it's like, okay, now rather than take that in and consider it, I need to push back in a parallel way with like some kind of like
Something
aggressive sort of
arbitrary.
argument or something.
Yeah.
And it's like we're looking for things to say that we might not have even really felt were significant a minute earlier or issues to bring up. But now that we've felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm being questioned, I'm being criticized or attacked or something, then I'm gonna like counterattack and push back harder to like checkmate the other person and be like, see,
That's
you're
all
wrong.
it's about. You're right. And it's only about controlling the narrative. The people who do this, they want to keep they have an image of themselves as they can do no wrong, typically, and they don't take accountability and they want to control the narrative. And you can have family members who have witnessed things. You can have people who have listened in on conversations who have heard things. You can have those people even tell them, "Hey, I know you're lying. I was listening for 3 months on conversations you were having with this person, and I heard what you were saying and how you were treating them." And they will, they'll deny it so much they'll just at that point when it's checkmate and they're caught with evidence, they'll hang up the phone. They'll never talk to you again. They'll say, "You're not a good friend because, you listened in on things, and that's the problem. It's not that you actually caught me being really scummy to someone and like awful. It's that you listened in on things, and that's not what a good friend does."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, that's the Darvo all the time playing and all the interactions that they have.
I want to give a little shout out to the simple tool that I imagine our listeners have heard of quite a bit, which is I feel statements, because
Yes.
it's it's very natural if we do the opposite of a I feel statement, where we're just like, you're being mean to me, you're so disrespectful, that the person's immediate reaction is going to be to think about either times where they were totally respectful or times where they felt disrespected by you. And we're in this sort of debate about the interpretation of what is disrespect and what is not. And the purpose of an I feel statement is to try to really get in touch with the direct behavior and how it made us feel, and to express that in a way that increases the clarity of what was actually happening, reduces interpretation, and minimizes defensiveness. So
Right.
it would be like, I feel sad, or I feel belittled, or I feel shamed when you talk over me when we're in group conversations, or when you discount everything that I've said to the kids as soon as I've said it, and then just tell them to do something differently, right?
Right.
Like those those kinds of things aren't like you're disrespecting me. You're being mean. You're like that. That's an interpret like disrespect isn't a clear behavior that's like I said this and then you immediately
Did that.
negated it and
Yeah.
basically told the kids don't listen, do this instead, or you talked over me in a group situation, right? Those are behaviors that if there were like 20 people in the room, they would all agree that happened. Disrespect is like an interpretation of the behavior. And so we're trying to, when we're having these conversations, stick with our feelings and the behaviors. So it's I feel however we felt when you state the behavior. And sometimes I feel statements have a request at the end of it. And I would appreciate it if you could blah. And it's
And
another behavior.
those
It's
are
not like be
powerful.
nicer to me. It's like
Right?
another
Yeah.
behavior.
No, it's a powerful tool because what it does is it's stating what happened, how the impact of what happened, and what would work better. And if you're in a relationship with a healthy person who does not, it's not all about control and it's not all about like they're always the victim no matter what, and they can hear you, that's a great tool. And it should work for most relationships. And you should see a de-escalation in those behaviors, right? Like you should see that those behaviors are um, becoming extinct over time because your partner cares and knows.
Right.
Um,
Well, and
that's
I feel
not,
like
yeah,
the the feedback that I've heard from people sometimes is that I feel statements just feel a little like mechanical and
right.
that you're like doing an exercise and you're not being genuine. It's like, okay, like you don't have to like, use the exact Mad Lib fill in the blank approach, but you need to stick with feelings
Yep,
caused by behaviors
yep.
as opposed to interpretations and how those interpretations feel like they might be a characterological issue with the other person. And we get to things like you always, you never, those like all or nothing statements.
Right.
You never care about blah blah blah. You're always disrespecting me. That
You
that
never loved
doesn't
us. You never cared about us. Yeah,
right. That it just completely invites the other person to like think about counterexamples of when they've actually been caring or when you haven't to just be like, ah, well, like let's keep score here. And we're
literally.
trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
So if you
You were
don't like,
talking about like the average relationship. I'm talking about an extreme situation with cluster B personality types. So like what you're talking about is really good advice. And but what you're talking about won't work with the type of people I'm talking about.
nice, nice, thank you. And I think that's
Yeah.
like a litmus test that is important to be like early on in the honeymoon period of a relationship. I think a lot of times we do kind of walk around on eggshells and avoid bringing up things that we feel like might disturb the peace. And I
Right.
think it's actually worth leaning into that stuff and just putting a little like grist in the mill, so to speak, to see what comes up if there is a little bit of conflict or tension or disagreement and if it can get resolved. Not like we're testing the other person or that we're like trying to sort of like manipulate a situation to be like, all
It
right,
has to be
like,
legitimate.
right, it's got to be legitimate and it's more about like not avoiding bringing up stuff that might cause a little problem. It's like seeing that like tension and conflict is a normal part of a relationship.
Right.
And we have to learn how to get through that as a couple. And
And I would
if we've,
argue that it's important to learn that early on. And to test that, I think there's nothing wrong with testing that early on. How does this person, like if I have an issue, how does this person respond? That's not a
yeah,
like you should do that, in my opinion, early on. You should see if they have the emotional capacity to hear you, to not darvo you, to not blame shift, to not like if you feel resolved at the end of it, if you feel like they didn't just run off or stonewall you or like those, it's really important because a lot of times you get in relationships with these people early on who are cluster B, the type of people I'm talking about, and they actually come off as super kind, super considerate, super loving. To the outside world, they're very charming. No one would ever think that they act that way behind closed doors. Their own family members will protect them if you try to come up to them and be like, hey, here's literal recordings of what's been going on, or like here's like testimony. Here, people who've witnessed this. They won't even give it the time of day because these people are enabled. Oftentimes, they're just so charming that like nobody can believe it, right?
right. I still, I'm getting hung up on the word test because I feel like if an hour later you go back to the person, you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't actually really concerned about that. I was just testing you. I'd be like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah. Well,
what are you
not it
doing? Like,
has to be
that's so manip
legitimate. Like you got to test you have to take the chances more what I'm saying.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Not like just a random because we didn't like the same. Well, you chose this color and I wanted this color. Like that's not. I'm talking about like you said something that hurt my feelings, and it I need to take the chance instead of just try to keep the peace to be like, hey, just so you know, like you said this, and I it made me feel this way. I'm just like I'm curious why this happened.
Right. Right. You're
Like
leaning
what was the
into,
reason you said that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be very different than like, I'm going to show up 15 minutes late on purpose to test this person and see if
Yeah.
they
No.
like can tolerate it and how they like
That's
that's
kind of
junk.
crappy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it has to see, in my opinion, it has to be something that would naturally happen just
Yeah.
between you two, not something orchestrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that you're feeling something that feels a little off and you want to address it. And
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, in a
And so
sense, that is testing because you are, for the first time, seeing what would happen if you spoke up. But I see
right.
what you're saying. You're saying don't manufacture things that are arbitrary just to see.
Right. Like this individual is not a person you experiment on like a lab rat to just like,
Right.
you know. Anyway, um, I know we've only got a couple of minutes and we could probably stick on this topic for much longer, but um, are there pieces or some like concluding thought that you have around like everything that we've talked about in the last
There,
hour and the
so
last two sessions?
so like in my work with clients and in my personal life, I've experienced um people who can, hear issues, conflict, and like resolve it in my personal life. And I've experienced people who just do all these things that I've just told you guys about. And then I've seen it with clients too, and I've watched how it's made them like lose their sanity and put them in a bad place. And I think what I want to leave on is like what happens when you're in a relationship with someone who comes in early on and love bombs the hell out of you is they make you feel like you're the perfect person for them and they're the perfect person for you. And then what happens shortly after that is like maybe within like 3 months, usually this is what happens, 3 to 6 months, is that they start devaluing you and like the mask starts to slip. And what that does is that creates something called a trauma bond because you're trying to fight back to that point you had in the beginning where they made you feel this like really euphoric love feeling, and you're like, how did I ruin this? Well, they're telling me that everything's my fault. Even when I tell them like what you're doing is hurting me, it's somehow my fault. And like to be aware of that pattern and that what you're fighting for was an illusion, like that wasn't actually who they were. Who they are is like who they're showing themselves to be for the time after and the foreseeable future. Like they would need to do a lot of work on themselves to change, and they would have to see that they have an issue. And these people, this type of, I'll just say more on the narcissistic spectrum, like higher on the narcissistic spectrum, they will never see themselves as the issue, and they will always control the narrative. No proof will matter. It doesn't matter what you have. It's like what happened last year to me. It doesn't matter all the proof in the world. This dude wanted to take me out, and he wanted to keep lying, and it, it until I got a restraining order against him. Like that's how crazy it was. And
Yeah.
that's what these people do. They will create a narrative, they will spin it. Doesn't matter. All the evidence in the world will go against it. They'll continue to do it because they want the control and the power, and they want to feel like they're victorious, and they want to feel like important, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's not about the relationship with these people. And if you find yourself going crazy and you're constantly over explaining, and then you're starting to act out of your character and you're getting angry and you're yelling and you're less patient, and maybe you cuss every now and then, or you call people names, this person a name or something, or you're just pushed so far out of your character, that's the relationship I'm talking about. I'm not talking about someone who you can fight with and it's like really upsetting, but you guys like can actually close the conversation, understand each other's triggers, say sorry, say I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I didn't know. Like if someone can say that to you and like genuinely not repeat it, That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who know what they're doing and it's always your fault and they just it's always going to be your fault and they're going to always get worse and worse and devalue you more and more until eventually you get fed up and leave and then they tell everyone, "See, they never loved me. They left me. I tried so hard. I put up with their yelling. I put up with their name calling. I put up with everything." And then you're still sitting there being like, but I didn't do it. Like I legitimately tried. And you
Yeah.
purposely, they call it the reverse discard. Like it's an orchestrated ending of the relationship because they're getting so much out of your reactions and you showing up all the time. It makes them feel important. They'll say things like, how come you didn't check up on me when you finally give up and they go out partying or drinking and you're used to like being like, hey, like, are you gonna call me? Are you gonna text me? Is everything okay? Are you gonna come home? When you stop doing that, they're not gonna ask. They're not gonna think like, oh, I miss. They're not gonna say, I miss you. I love you. I can't wait to come home to you. They're gonna say something like, how come you didn't check up on me? You don't care what I'm gonna do tonight?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just a completely different energy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap.
Yeah.
Can I sing the song again?
I mean, you can. I don't know how many people we've lost today because you've been singing. Like it's painful, Dan.
Maybe it just shows another side of me, and
I'm kidding. I love it.
people are.
You're great. You're great. It's wonderful. I'm sorry. That was mean of me. See, I know I
No,
made you feel bad.
no, it's fine. No, legit. Obviously, like the soundboard needs to come back because it's like
You
an
just made some
artistic.
beautiful songs. Yeah.
It's like a perfectly formed work of art. That soundboard. We'll have it back next week. I hope because I hope my computer's back next week. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe. Talk to you next time.
Bye,
Therapy
guys.
dudes. Therapy dudes.